I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order for RSW Jail Finance and Personnel Committee. I've brought Evan Vance with me. He's going to be your new county administrator for Shenandoah County come Monday morning. So if we could go around the table and everybody introduce themselves, I'd appreciate it. For Evan's sake.
Gary Curry, Rappahannock County Administrator. Doug Stanley, Warren County Administrator.
I'm Brendan Hefty with Hefty Wiley and Gore.
Thanks for the face with the name on it.
Russ Gilkison, Superintendent.
Steve Weaver, Deputy Superintendent.
Stephanie Smith, I'm the Finance Manager.
Mary O'Connor, the Administrative Assistant.
You know me? Yes.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes from February 28th. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Everyone in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Superintendent's report. Russ.
Average daily population breakdown, Rappahannock with 25 at 7.6%, Shenandoah County with 151 at 45.9%, and Warren County with 153 at 46.5%. Total member jurisdiction ADP is 329. We currently have, for contract beds, Prince William County with 3, Page County with 93, Culpeper with 32, total facility ADP 457. We currently have 29 officer vacancies. This includes 8 positions held for vacancy savings and 1 LPN vacancy. We have filled the RN supervisor, nursing director vacancy. They should be coming on board tentatively around May 1st. So they're trying to give notice with their current position and things like that.
Russ, would it be a chore to include that chart each month that shows the vacancies?
No, we absolutely can do it. Okay.
We can't remember one month the other, what the number was.
Sure. You're talking about the line graph where it shows.
Yeah.
Okay. Recruitment and retention. This has actually changed since I wrote this. We had an LPN that did start with us, but has since left on the day of the orientation. Not really sure why. We tried to make contact with them, they wouldn't call back, so I'm not sure what transpired. If they just decided this wasn't the right environment for them, we don't know. So, and the start date for the nursing director has changed due to some circumstances that she had to deal with. So we're looking at May 1st for her to come on board. MA programs and services. So far, 7 of our inmates who were successfully participating in the McShin substance abuse program have been transferred from our custody to McShin Foundation's custody. This has been done by the courts, not by us.
And that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. You know, it's a way to try to get them back into community and more intensive treatment and get them to job and hopefully show the courts that they can get back in society and be productive.
Ross, Madam Chair, if I ask a question, I know Winchester's got a drug court, and they've talked about that from time to time. Is this kind of working like a drug court in that?
I really don't know because we've not had any communication.
Well, I guess if people are getting the help they needed, and through this we're actually getting them back out to society a little bit earlier, looks like. So
it is, drug courts normally work where they've got law enforcement involved and things like that, and probation parole. That doesn't have that. This doesn't have that component to it, but it does have the component of their being supervised, they're being monitored. They still have to report back to the courts for their progress. So it is some of the functions are similar, but not exactly the same. So, let's see. This month, RSW workforce inmates have been utilized in all 3 jurisdictions at the Skyline Regional Justice Academy. Different projects that have been done. At Skyline, we're repairing some shingles, removing snow and ice from sidewalks during the last snow event. Rappahannock County, they continue to work on the county park there, clearing fence lines, reinforcing existing trails, clearing paths, brush removal. I mean, they've done a lot of work there, much like what we did in Shenandoah County at Morristown. So they're just taking those skills and applying them down there. So it seems to be very well received by the community. We've had some comments back from different people. They really appreciate it and like the way it looks. So
Are you all planning to do any litter pickup again?
We are,
Okay.
every year we, we do that coordination with VDOT to work on the exit ramps and things like that. We, have been working on 340 and 522 in different areas that they've requested us to continue on with that. And then, during our mowing season, anywhere where they mow, they're actively picking up trash in those areas that they mow at, so.
Any questions for Russ related to the monthly report? Okay, how about the facility statistics report? Any questions regarding that?
I did want to bring up on the statistics for where it's showing those counties that we rent bed space to. Those numbers are different from what's on the superintendent's report, and I didn't pick up on it until afterwards. Those are actually committal numbers, not actual inmate days, so we're going to change that to where it's going to show inmate days versus committal numbers so that they're consistent. So we will make that change for next month's meeting so that it's consistent with what it's showing.
Any questions for Russ? All right, Stephanie, back up to finance report.
Sorry, just make a note of that. Almost $400,000 was received from the Compensation Board in February for the January 2019 salaries and benefits reimbursement, of which almost $60,000 was for vacancy savings. Contract bed rental billing for February 2019 was as follows. Culpeper County was just over $30,000, Page County was $91,000, and Prince William County was just under $3,000. The total bed rental revenue year-to-date for FY19, including revenue from medical, housing, commissary, and telephone fees, is $944,000. February marks 66% of the year. Expenditures are at 60% used, and revenue is at 74% realized.
Good financial report.
So 944,000 on 8 months. So this is through February.
Yes, 8 months.
So we're projecting 1.4 million, and we're recognizing 750,000 in FY20.
Yeah.
So it's 50% of what we received in 19, projecting for revenue for 20.
Is this something you feel comfortable changing or not? It's a
Again, it's
gamble or what?
what we're cautious about are staff numbers.
Okay.
If we aren't able to maintain the staffing that we have, then we're not going to be able to house those additional inmates, or maybe not at those numbers.
Yeah, so I guess that's where I'm going, is that this revenue can help offset those costs and raises that we have in these columns. And by recognizing just a little bit more of that revenue, we can take care of this far right column without any issues whatsoever on the budget.
I did receive a call this week as well. Culpeper has requested an additional 40 beds from what they have now because Piedmont Regional Jail says you got to go. We can't hold your inmates anymore. So they're looking for a place for the rest of their overflow inmates. Unfortunately, I have the space. I just don't have the manpower to do it.
So I think that we're being very, very conservative with what is the budget?
Contract bid for next year?
Yeah.
750.
750. So it's literally half.
And some of what's changed just in the last 2 months is, and there was an article in one of the papers recently, Page County recently is pulled completely out of Middle River Regional Jail, and they're all here. So that has made a tremendous bump in those Page County inmate numbers. We were usually around 60, and now we're sitting at 93, and I think we're probably closer to 100 really today. So, I didn't have those numbers prior to, when I developed the budget.
So if I look on the revenue number between just a 3% increase and the change COs to minimum, that's a difference between 15.5 and 15.9. So $400,000. It's there.
Yeah,
and then some. And so that then some could be held in reserve to say, hey, let's hedge our bets a little bit. I guess we'll get to that.
Any other questions related to the finance report for Stephanie? Okay, number 5, repair of the Acorn vacuum waste system.
I'd sent an email requesting to proceed with the purchase of a new heat exchanger and pump for that system to the F&B committee. We recently had an evaluation of the system because we've had some continued problems where it wasn't able to maintain vacuum, causing problems with the waste system inside the facility. So we contacted Acorn, which is based out of California. It took several weeks to finally get them to come here to do an evaluation to figure out what was going on. We had some issues that were able to be changed through programming, but then it was determined that this pump was failing. And it was failing because the heat exchanger was failing. So through that, their recommendation is we need to replace both pieces of equipment. We've received numbers from Acorn who they were subbing work out to different contractors, and so we contacted some other contractors to get some other pricing utilizing the same equipment. So we had variances from $30,000 to $21,000. I've made a request to the F&P by email to go ahead and proceed with the $21,000 because that was outside of my scope to approve on my end. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, so basically today, we're just reaffirming that, so we would still need a motion.
I move that we approve that or authorize that purchase retroactive back to purchase date.
So we do have that work scheduled. Unfortunately, the heat exchanger is a custom built for that particular design that we have back there, so there's a long lead time for that. They're telling us at least 12 weeks. So that's the last word we got. We're continuing to try to work with them and see if we can get that expedited or see if they can locate one that's similar or something. I'm not sure. So, but we're doing our best to try to get that repaired as soon as possible.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. I'm sure you did a purchase order.
We did.
So once you get the approved minutes, let's go ahead and make that, somehow attach that to that invoice or the purchase order so that they understand we do have a record of that we approved it.
And the request that I made by email, that's already been attached in
Okay.
the responses, and again, we'll continue on with that tracking of that purchase.
Okay, thank you all. FY 2020 budget. Everyone has a copy.
And I'll note that the only thing that has changed in this version since the last version is the decrease in costs for the health insurance. That's the only thing
What
that's
was the net decrease?
3%.
No, dollar-wise.
Oh, I didn't calculate that. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
When you had plugged in.
We had plugged in a 15%
a 15,
placeholder.
And now a -3.
I think I have it from last time. Hold on.
Guess that's only selling benefits.
Top board benefit fund line.
There's a top line here.
Is it under salary and benefits? She's got it down here. She's going to calculate it.
Sorry about that.
But yeah, that's
Right here, 9.4, and this is 9,263.
so 140,000 maybe.
$163,000. It went down, but we had budgeted a placeholder.
All right, that's good.
Good news.
And it was -3 point something or just 3%?
3%.
3%. Okay. So we have a 3% comp board increase, salary increase, and then we also have the change to minimum amount. And the difference is about 400-some thousand, well, 300-some thousand.
I think with the fact that we got 29 vacancies, we're creeping back to that 30 figure. I don't think we have any choice. Even like Gary said, we can always inch up the estimated revenue a little bit to offset, but I think we've got to go try to make a bold move to try to be more competitive with salaries and be able to
Particularly when the outside revenue is,
sit in, there's other revenue waiting, if we could.
the outside revenue is at risk
Yeah, yeah.
if you can't, if you don't have enough employees.
So do you think the salary is the,
Well, and I don't have the copy of that chart, but if you look at that chart, the last time we changed the minimum, that's when vacancies started dropping quickly. And then we've just slipped behind again, you know, and so hopefully if we raise that minimum back up, then those vacancies will start coming back down. Right now, we're not getting any applications. We might get one a month, is what we've been getting since January. So it's just not there. And we're still doing all the things we were doing before. We're attending job fairs, we're advertising all the same places. Just not there. You know, we've also got a strong economy. It's hurting us, you know, everybody and the brothers hiring around us, all the factories, the businesses, every other law enforcement agency, they're all doing the same thing. So it's, we've got a couple things working against us that hopefully if we can at least be competitive salary-wise, that'll entice some people that are interested in doing this line of work to come here.
So the difference between the two options is $380,094 between the change to minimum and the 3%. So an additional 380 needed overall. So I don't know if the committee thinks it's appropriate to fund all of it by recognizing additional revenue. The $700,000 that we're not recognizing right now, if revenue continues for outside that rental like it did for 19, or is for 19, but maybe at least some of it to share that between that revenue source and local dollars.
What's the starting salary in our ADC now?
I don't have that in front of me. I want to say it was right around 40.
Okay.
And I'm assuming they're going to get the 3%.
And they're going up.
So we're probably still going to be behind them, even with this new salary of 41,463. But you know, that's, we're trying to always be mindful of where our law enforcement agencies and the member jurisdictions are at. We're trying to make sure we're not going to be higher than them. So we're looking at that. We look at what NRADC makes, and we're trying to balance that for what we're requesting.
And I think our law enforcement, after a year, I think they make around that 41.
41,
Yeah.
42?
not quite to 42.
So what you're
It's before the
suggesting,
3%.
Gary, is to take
That's before the 3%.
some of the additional revenue coming from bed rental to go towards the salary increase?
Well, it's all in there. Finish up the define. So if we say, right now we're saying that the outside bed revenues is going to be $750,000 in FY20, which for argument's sake, we say it's $950,000, add
Right.
$200,000 to that.
Mm-hmm.
That would be recognizing 67% of expected 19 revenue for 20. That still seems fairly conservative to me, based on what we know and people that are knocking on your door to have you have their inmates. So I don't think that's particularly risky,
I'm
and it
comfortable.
would reduce the burden on the localities.
I'm comfortable raising revenue as long as you all are, from some people.
I mean, all I can tell you is that we will continue to rent as many beds as we can based upon the number of staff that we have. You know, I mean, that, as far as how much revenue, I can't tell you that. I mean, it's just, you know, these other jurisdictions, you know, Culpeper asking for 40. If we can't provide it, they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to, so that I can't say that, well, they're always going to be there waiting for
Like I
us.
said, I think we all know there's a careful balance there. You want to include enough of the revenue, but you don't want to be caught short if and when all of a sudden now we drop down to 500,000 and have to make up the difference. So I think maybe that 2/3 figure is probably a good barometer. I could support that, but I do think we've got to move the salary barometer.
I think either way we do, yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to be sitting here at 35, 40 vacancies before you know it. So I think we're going to have to make that move. So I would support making that recommendation. I'll make the motion then if you want to recommend the budget with the moving the starting CO salary to 41,463 and increase the estimated bed rental from 750 to 950.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So that's a recommendation.
That's, yeah, full authority. On the change on the CO, I think I had asked the last time, what's this do to your compression? And I think you said it does not affect it.
It's in there.
It's in there. It was, the compression was looked at, it was addressed to make sure that we didn't have people coming in that were making more than what our existing employees were. So whatever we had to do to move them, to get them where they needed to be, so that, it was being equitable and fair, we made that adjustment already.
Okay, and it doesn't mess up your pay scale too awful? Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you all. Thank you for all your work on the budget as well.
Thanks for being healthy.
Okay, now item number 7, the 2018 true-up discussion.
You go ahead and make that call.
And we're getting James on the phone, correct?
We're getting, I think it's Ted and those guys, I think.
James is supposed to be on the call as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
So which number is it?
This one.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound. Enter your participant ID followed by pound. Otherwise, just press pound to continue.
Just press pound to continue.
You are in the meeting now. There are 2 participants in the meeting.
Hey guys, it's the RSW FMP committee.
Hey, you got Ted Cole and James Kelly.
How y'all doing?
Okay. Okay. No.
We're just getting ready to start the discussion on the true up, and we've got Gary's spreadsheet on our whiteboard here, and I don't know if that's where we want to start, Gary, but I know you put quite a bit of time into it.
Well, yeah, I guess
Just make sure we're on the same page here real quick, Gary. Is that what you had circulated?
email attached, it was attached to an email dated March 26th at 9:34 a.m.
Okay, got it.
There should be a big numbered list on the front that explained it.
In the body of the email.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, we're on the same page. I think James and I both have that one.
So the big, go to the end of the line of all the discussion is put this set together and then kicked it out to RFC and Davenport and everybody else on the email chain, basically saying, look, poke holes in this and tell me why it's not appropriate. And heretofore, I've not heard anything. So I can walk through this, or we can skip to the end of the discussion and you can say it's wrong.
Based on my review, I'm able to follow the numbers throughout the spreadsheet. The only numbers I was having a little trouble with was the contribution to capital numbers. I said maybe that's an amount that the board wanted each locality to contribute, or
That's a number that we've put back in reserve, James, in the past, yeah.
It's basically been set to a designated fund balance in the capital reserve fund.
That's created up, what, 407,000 or so that we've got set aside.
Which is good, the 230 and the 177 add to that number, right? That's good. So one of the, and I emailed both Ted and I'm sorry, what is the James this morning. Just said the biggest issue with what we've done to what I'm showing here is that our true-ups in the past have not recognized the revenue from the member localities that comes by way of credit from the previous year. We simply just reduce our pay-in and move on, and then we do our true-up based on what we actually paid in, but that's not accurate. We paid in the cash we paid in plus the credit from the previous year, even though that credit is not recognized on the books as revenue. It is there. You know, you can think of that very simply as if we each request RSW to send us a check, and we kept that check in our home, we would have to pay the full amount of that fourth quarter. And you have to look at it that way, and we haven't. So that is a major impact to going back in time and looking at what the true-ups were versus what they should have been, based on the agreement being based on net local expenditures or net operating expenditures, with those net operating expenditures very simply defined as all your costs less outside revenue. So after everybody else pays the bills, there's a certain amount left over that's divided up by the 3 members. And the 3 members divided up by our usage over the last 3 years. And so this spreadsheet just rolls that out. And it adds in that previous year credit to show how that plays through. So I don't, as I noted in the email, I don't think we can go back and recognize the excessive or not enough credit from 16 or 17 unless you unzip this all the way to the beginning of time, which is 2 or 3 more years. So there's some decisions to be made whether we want to do that or have RFC do that or something. Or how we just want to handle FY18. We can just assume the FY17 credit was right and march on and handle it that way, or we can assume just ignore the FY17 credit and ignore the 16 and 17 excessive credit or where it wasn't enough. Those are decisions for the committee and the board to make. If we have the data and can calculate net operating expenditures for since whenever we started here, then it probably makes sense just to have somebody do that.
So it's FY15.
Is it just 1 more year? Yeah, so it's not that much further. Well, so then this may be right if it's only FY15 because there was no true up in 15. So it'd just be confirming the FY15 credit and whether it was accurate or not. So this is just inserting the credit that was given and assumes it to be correct. So if you can confirm the FY15 credit is correct, but then this should be correct. Well,
Now, what James prepared, the numbers match
yeah, so his
with
numbers.
with your net operating expenditure.
So his numbers were used to generate the
But did you change
left.
the calculation for the true-up?
Yes.
In other words, you didn't use the model that was adopted initially. You changed it to more of a calendar year or not?
No. I did not use the model that had been used in the past because I believe it is inaccurate. I'm using simply calculating the member locality share based on the net operating expense for that particular audited fiscal year, as we just defined, and then dividing that share up to the members by the 3-year average. So that's the first column here. And so that is how much we owe.
But in the
And
3-year
the only other
average-
question is how much did we pay?
In the 3-year average, we're not aware of. We base it on the audit is the time when we do it, which is, I realize, 6 months later.
Yeah. No, it's the 3 preceding fiscal years. It's by the time we get to close out the books on FY18, we know the 3-year average, the 3 preceding years for FY18. It's FY18, 17, 16. We know those. They're done in the books, and that's the data at the very top, and that's the same percentages that have been used over time for the true-up. what we don't know is what is the percentage that we should be sharing the FY20 budget around. That's a guess. The better guess we make.
Well, what we're using though is from the last audit. That's what we're proposing, which is
two different things. You've got
40.26.
You've got,
excuse me, for FY20.
Yeah, so for FY20, you've got budget. That's how much we're actually going to pay in based on our quarterly amounts. That's going to get fixed after the audit by what the real 3-year percentage was. We're doing our best to estimate what the 3-year percentage is going to be when we budget. Now, we can use whatever percentage we want, but if we use an old number, the chances of it changing between that number we use and when FY20 ends is much greater. And you have much more exposure on a locality level.
Well, these numbers over here are exactly what James prepared. I have to be honest, I have not had a chance to see what you're trying to capture in each of these tables and what you're carrying forward. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, so I offer it up to everybody, and you just dump it on Evan, and or have Mr. Kelly and Mr. Cole dig into it and confirm they think it's appropriate. Or Mr. Stanley.
Well, the numbers that Stephanie and I guess Lori and whoever else in the past have received were the numbers from James based on their closeout from the audit, correct?
As far as the notes say in previous years.
But
yeah.
they were based on balance sheet and weren't real numbers. This year it said there was $1 million excess revenue, and there wasn't. There was $346,000. And so that balance sheet number is wrong. It can't be used for this purpose.
And so the calculation, I think that in 17, when we found the $660,000 error, that's been taken into account here?
You don't have to take any of that into account. It's completely based on how much did we spend
and how much
did the members provide. And if the members provided too much, then they should get some back. If the members didn't provide enough, then they got to ante up. And how much is the right amount is based on the percentage you used over the last 3 years. So how much we budgeted is completely out of the question. It doesn't matter. Budgeting is an estimating tool going forward. This is actuals.
So what percentage then are you suggesting that they use for budget next year?
So I'll answer that 2 ways. One, there's percentages that need to be used for Stephanie to be able to create bills on a quarterly basis to go out, so there's some predictability on what's going to be billed. But each of us has to pay attention to our usage percentage over the last 3 years, because that's going to be used to do the true-up. And you may find out at the end of FY20 that you owe money, because we budgeted at, if we budget 19, here's our budget spreadsheet. We're going to budget 19s, and it's showing that Shenandoah is
we know that now.
40%.
We know that now. And when that fourth quarter payment comes around, that determines what happens, number one, with the fourth quarter payment based on that average. And then that's what we're using in the upcoming budget. And of course, using Shenandoah as an example, we've continued to go up because our population's
So our draft budget right now includes the numbers that run a 3-year average through June 30 of 18. Now, Gary, last meeting had thrown out, what if you did, you could, it just says year in the service agreement, you could say calendar year numbers for budgeting purposes. That doesn't define anything else other than it gives you 3 years of better estimates maybe. But maybe in that instance, Mary Beth, that it accounts for your increase a little better if you use numbers through December 31 of 18. It gives you 6 more months of numbers.
I think the best way to look at this right now is to look at the FY19 budget column on the budget spreadsheet we just approved. It shows that Shenandoah's share of the budget was calculated based on 37.98%. You go back and look at the top of my spreadsheet, and you look at the FY19 percent, and it's very likely yours will be 42.85. And the only numbers that are missing to calculate that percentage right now are the last 4 months of this fiscal year. So if you use the exact same numbers for February for March, April, May, June, as happened just now in February, your percent's going to be 42.85. But you only budgeted
That's
37.
changing how we do the true-up process.
That's got nothing to do with, that's just reality. It's going to be 42.85. But you paid, you budgeted 37. So you budgeted short. And the true-up is going to require you to pay. So you want to know if 37.98 is right as soon as possible. And you want that 37.98 to be as close as possible to that 3-year window. But, you know, I'm okay.
We know we're at 40.26 coming in for FY20.
And that's what they've used.
But you're not. You know, it's going to be
Well,
higher
we know
than
it's
that.
going to go up again, and that'll be calculated.
But you'll
and then
catch it the next
That's right.
go round.
You
We
will.
know it's going to go up.
But you have been very, well, one, the credits haven't been calculated correctly. But two, I know that whether Stephanie sends me bills that are $100,000 a quarter, I'm going to be looking at my most recent usage, and I'm going to say, come true up time, I may get hit with an extra bill because my usage is not 5.3%.
Gary,
It's
we
been
understand
6.
that. We haven't had blinders on. We
Yeah.
talk about it at every meeting, how
Yeah,
the population's gone up.
So I wanted to separate the two conversations. True up is completely independent from budgeting. From a budgeting, I just suggest the latest we can push that 3-year moving window, the better it is, the more accurate and close it's going to track to the true up. But you know, I'm not. You know, that is what it is. That's a subjective decision. The true up is an objective discussion on fixed actual numbers.
Well, I went back and found the calculation on FY17, and it even adds at the top, compiled by RFC. I would like to see James Kelly go back and look at those calculations from the true up. And what we were showing as surplus that it sounds like may not have been the surplus. I feel a little more comfortable if our auditor did the calculation.
I 100% agree. That's why the left side of this calculation includes numbers from RFC. And my summary of all this was RFC and people that are smarter than me tell me why this is not accurate.
Aren't you putting a lot of stress on Stephanie for her numbers? Because they are unaudited numbers that she's going to prepare for you.
No, these are all audited numbers. We don't do true up until the audit comes out.
So it is what it is.
It's audited. And we just need.
Yeah, but you're
RFC.
asking for her numbers right up until now.
No, not her dollar numbers, our usage numbers. We know
Inmate
how many
numbers.
beds are
That's
there.
what, yeah,
We know,
and-
yeah.
but you're saying the same thing, the inmate numbers.
But we know how many bodies are in the beds. I mean, that's just known, month to month. It's in the monthly reports. But I'm okay with us using the old average for budget. I just will know that going in.
It just sounds like we had a dollar amount that, now we're not sure, is it correct?
Now, I think we already resolved through Davenport's analysis that the million plus that was on the initial true-up we did this year is wrong.
And with the RFC numbers you've got there.
And the RFC numbers confirm it. And that's because there are accounting, there was, depreciation wasn't in there right.
And then they added principal back.
Principal wasn't in
But
there
these
right.
actual expenditures here reflect
That's
the
RFC,
principal.
that's RFC numbers. And that's based on.
But it includes the principal.
Yeah,
No.
and it should. Because the definition of net operating expenses in the agreement says that they include debt service. By definition.
I understand
And
that.
it says we share the net operating expenses by the 3-year usage percentage. And so this is what the agreement says we're supposed to do.
So the real question is, does RFC agree with the numbers? And two, how far do we go back? Unzip it.
Well, I can tell you that from Mr. Curry's spreadsheet, the amount that he has as over and underpaid for 16, 17, and 18 agree to the surplus calculations agree to the spreadsheet that I sent out last Friday or Saturday.
And I have those, and they match. That's the part on the left-hand side. And I would just feel more comfortable, James, if you would look at what's in the center.
He's talking about the column I've called EE.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly look at it further, but just, my initial review for the last 30 or so minutes of it, what is shown from the third column from the end, it ties back to what I sent.
The far right column where it says excessive FY16 credit,
No, the one, two over from there says,
over and under.
FY15 over or underpaid. And the same for 17 and 18.
Okay.
So the next column to the right of that is just the actual credit that was given based on the
Right.
true of that year.
And that's the number that you're indicating has not been correct. And I would just feel
Right.
good if James would just take a look at that.
Right, so James is saying the number to the left, which for Shenandoah is 421,642, he thinks that's correct for the over underpaid. Well, you only got a credit for 243.
See, mine says at the top, completed.
Right.
So I'm happy for this to go anyhow the group wants it to go. It's information for the group.
I know, and my hope had been we would have had this wrapped up while Mary Beth was still here, but we don't have to. But also the tie-in was we're getting ready to issue our fourth quarter statement, in which case there may be some credit due to some in the statement, or at least, or an increase, whatever that number is going to be.
We can just pay what the fourth quarter says we're supposed to pay.
And then have to
work out the credit and send me a check.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to receive a check for any credit we eventually work out and pay the full fourth quarter.
Do we want James to go back and tie 15 into this? Or are we okay, since there was no credit given, just going with these three?
There was a credit given to 15, whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. That would be the only H right here. Yeah, that's the only piece of the puzzle that is not defined in my mind, is whether that actual credit provided and applied to 16 is correct.
Well, here is 17 and 16. Well, 17 and 18. It's 17 and 18. So I'd like one look at it. That's just my opinion.
All right, I'd say let's ask James to look at it and give us a report for next FMP meeting. Assuming this is correct, then Gary, go through what is the final determination here. The bottom line on the spreadsheet is where are we at with the numbers?
Well, so each kind of section of rows is for each fiscal year. And you can see to the very right side of each row, the difference, the excessive credit, which is either a negative or a positive. So just to be stated the correct way, if it's an excessive credit that's negative, means we can get a credit large enough. And in 17, it shows that I received too big of a credit, and 16, too small of a credit. And then in 18, no credit's been issued yet. So there's no analysis of whether it's too high or too low, just what it should be based on what we paid in this year in cash and in our previous year credit. And so if you stack the 18 over underpaid with the excessive credit from 16 and 17, you get the column to the all the way bottom right, which is a cumulative true-up. Now, I'm not saying we definitely want to go back and do that. I'm just saying that's perfect. That's the cleanup number.
Yeah.
And those numbers will change if the FY15 credit changes, if it wasn't calculated appropriately.
James, you understand what we're asking you to do?
Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. The only question I would have for, if you want me to do this for 2015, if you recall in 2015, you had Commonwealth capital grants, and you paid off a portion of the large portion of the debt all that year. You had about in construction of capital assets. So I would need to know how you would like me to handle those items.
So I guess, it goes back to the definition of net operating expenses in the service agreement. And trying to discern between that definition and those expenses you just mentioned. The capital, I guess, wouldn't apply. But
Okay.
that's why there's CPAs involved.
Well, I guess I'm looking at 17 and 16 where, any payments that were made for capital assets probably aren't in this calculation.
Well, I guess we designate many capital assets, quote unquote, as operational expenses and include them in the operational budget. We've never paid for anything out of our capital reserve fund, or it's always been out of operating dollars.
Okay.
And so I think the three localities agree that we want to share those capital costs. Just like we're sharing the debt service for the whole jail.
Yep.
As part of that operating.
Yeah.
And just, so James, just to be clear, the 177,296 and the 230,612, the contribution to capital, those were votes of the board at the true-up time to provide that off to the designated fund balance. So that's
The capital reserve,
Yeah.
Holdbacks of funds.
right, right.
which is
And so
480, 888.
The spreadsheet basically says we're sharing those at the same percentages of the audited year, and that makes sense.
Okay.
All right, anything further on that? Hey, thank you all for being on the call.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Mary Beth, congratulations.
Thank you.
And wish you well in your next chapter.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Yes, ma'am. When is the next meeting? When do you guys need this by?
April 25th.
April 25th,
Meeting is
week before ideally.
fourth, Thursday, Doug?
Yes, if you could get it the midweek of the third week, at least a week ahead of time, we would have an opportunity to get it out and everybody could digest it.
Technically, the meeting is what, the 25th, April 25th, I think?
Correct.
So if I get it to you by the 18th or 17th of April, that should be good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and if, I know, James, most of this is going to fall to you, at least based on what's been discussed, but if we can help, obviously let us know. We'd be happy to assist as needed.
Okay, will do.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, any other outstanding issues to come before the F&P?
I was going to say, I know it's kind of like making sausage, but at least we can get to agreement on where we should be. We've taken a look back and we have a template to move forward, and hopefully, I think we agree, let's have RFC produce that surplus, the true-up number for us so that it takes the pressure off staff. I think they'd appreciate it.
I think that's what's, I guess worrisome the most is that, I go back and I see the calculation based on the 17 audit, and it says compiled by RFC, and that's the number that was used. But there's concern that that number's not accurate in terms of this is what we really have. So I'll feel better when I know that
the methodology
when
in line
James
with the
Kelly
agreement.
looks at it, I'll feel a whole lot
So those
better.
numbers are accurate to their assumptions that they made. Their assumptions just don't align with the service agreement.
Okay, anything else? All right, your next meeting schedule, you're on. April 25,
She says with
May
great joy.
23rd, and June 27th. Any further business? We are adjourned. Thank you all.